engagement goes this way.
Perfect. All right, hey bud, I'm going to talk about some of the things we were talking about in the video and some of the things that I saw in the fighting that you sent. So one of the important things is how and when engagements are happening. What I'm seeing a lot in your videos and in a lot of people's videos is if Fred here is in guard, right, go ahead and be in guard, people think that the fight doesn't happen until here. And so you're letting people get pretty deep in on you before you start throwing. Back up a little bit. And even here, the fight has been going for a while. You shouldn't be waiting until here for things to happen. So take one step back. So one of the things that we work on a lot is we call it the mental math drill. So I'll look at Fred and I'll be, so for me, like this is where the fight has started and shots happen in motion. So I don't throw where I see that Fred is. I want to throw where he's going to be. So if I throw this leg shot, he's not there right now. But if he takes a step forward and I move while he's moving, it lands perfectly. And that's what you want to do. I don't want to wait until he finishes the step and then try to throw, because now I'm kind of behind in the fight and things are not so good. So I want to be able to throw where he's going to be and then be able to transition around. People think about the engagement just at ranges, but something that I find helpful is thinking about where in relation to your body the engagement is happening. So I think I put it so that this white line is here. So scooch up a little bit. I want the engagement, stick out your sword, I want the engagement to be happening here in front of me where we're kind of sparring and moving around. I want where our tools intersect, this kind of point of engagement, to be between us. What happens a lot is people end up with the engagement more on them, and now it's really hard to kind of play your full game. So we want to think about kind of having this like bubble between us of engagement. So if Fred moves, I don't want him to collapse the engagement on me and fight from here. Go ahead and step back and just do that same movement. I'm going to roll and move so that the relative spacing of the engagement is always happening between us. I don't want to let his engagement get on me. So when Fred throws a shot, I don't want to be blocking on my body, because that means the engagement is happening on me and I'm really kind of like curled up. So I want to be defending. See how this point of engagement is in front of me, and this makes things a lot easier. It's something, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you just because it's kind of one long video, but this is what I call the wedge of defense. So if I'm blocking in front of me and Fred throws a flat snap, I have to move that much. If Fred throws a wrap, I have to move that much. But the closer I get to him through a flat snap, the more, and of course through a wrap, the more I have to move. So I want my kind of defensive wedge to stay narrow. I don't want to have to reach super far. And now I do want Fred's defensive wedge to get wide. So if he threw a shot in a perfect world, I'm going to block where my wedge is narrow, and now I might step over and throw where he has to move quite a bit. So I want to defend where my wedge is narrow, where I can defend in front of me, and then I want to force him to defend where he has to really move. And that's really important, and that's connected to something else that I saw, which is you tend to have a fairly scissory sword action that stays in front of your body, and that means that your body and your sword are not super connected, and you have a tendency to like step into range and fire. And we really want to think about movement with every cut. So I want to, for example, if I want that offside hip, I want to step out and see how my sword is covering me, and then I want to pivot and throw, and I'm going to do it to the other side. I'm going to step out and pivot and throw, and see how I'm behind my sword? I'm not doing this where my sword is outside by center, because if he blocks it and he throws and my sword is outside, it's really hard, right? If I throw and he blocks it and my sword is in front of me, it's much easier to kind of control and go for those secondary blocks. So we want a lot more when we're doing our lateral work to be rolling to the side rather than staying upright and kind of keeping our arms kind of in front of our chest. So this motion where our steps and pivots and our turning are throwing our attacks rather than kind of the more kind of upright chopping is really going to help. So I would practice kind of these motions where I'm going to the side, I'm turning, and my sword does stay in front of me, but it's because I'm turning and using that turning to power the shots. So I think that's going to help. Would you dump that and get a second one-handed sword, please? this will be like really helpful when you're fighting, because you fought so many two-sword people in that video. And so if I'm facing the dreaded two-sword guy, it's weird, right? Like, obviously I can thrust him, but you did end up getting stuck in what I call the zone of death, which is the X in front of them where they can throw with both hands, right? That's kind of tough. What I like to do is I like to force them to one side or the other. So the thrusts are good, but what I want to do is I want to end up in a position where I more have to just deal with one hand and one sword. So one of my common things is I'll do a thrust to get him to cross block, and then I'll step way out here and throw over here. I don't want to stay stuck on his center line, because especially if he does break it so that the engagement kind of comes on me and he's even and he can throw with both hands equally, that is a super tough place to be. It's not unbeatable, but it's not the most beatable position. We always want to optimize our engagements. And when you ask me what did I mean about deciding like when and where the fight happens, you want to make the fight happen in the places and times that are best for you. So if I'm fighting a two-stick guy, square in front of them is not the best for me pretty much ever, right? So sometimes I will throw out and pull in and stuck in, but even if I do that, I go back to the outside. I'm always looking to get to the outside of one or the other hand, because I want to minimize the amount of like two-stick of death he can do to me. And so that's going to be really important. And so that's really connected to that kind of wedge of defense stuff. So if he's a two-stick guy and he throws a shot, I don't want to lock on me and I don't want to stay square. So if he throws a shot, I want to move towards the sword and then roll out so that I'm way past and he's less able to hurt me with this one. That's really important. So I think that's kind of a lot, and we can go back and forth some more. I just thought it'd be easier to kind of ramble at you on video than try to type all this out. So the things that I would focus on are keeping the plane of engagement between you and your opponent, and when they aggress, rolling or side to side. And that's not just backpedaling. Backpedaling is going to do it. Sometimes when they aggress really heavily, I'll end up rolling and go behind them and we'll exchange places. Because just backing up is not going to work on go back. So the lateral motion is going to be super important. But that lateral motion should come with that kind of sword movement so that the lateral motion can control and contribute to the power of your attacks. And when you're doing those, that's where it's good for your sword to stay in the middle, because again, if something happens and it doesn't work, this is pretty easy to defend. If I reach and it's on the outside of me, I'm probably not going to get there in time. So the plane of engagement, where it happens, keeping it between you rather than on you, super important. Getting the angles and using those angles to throw your shots, super important. Moving your feet. You have a good like step and thrust, but it ends up being kind of lungy. I would love to see you bring your back foot with you so that it's easy to get back out, or bring your back foot with you so it's easier to get to the side. If you just step out with your front foot and the back foot stays, it's very easy to end up too heavily weighted on the front foot, and then it's much harder to go places. So when you come in, bring that back foot with you and then be able to move it. And then kind of what we were talking about with the two sword stuff in particular, getting off that X of death where they can offend you with both swords equally. Really try to go to the outside, the backhand of one of the two sides, and you can use those thrusts to kind of cuts on the outside. The other nice thing is that tends to make their blocks weaker. If I'm facing Fred in front and he turns to face my cut, I'm kind of coming into the strongest part of his blocks, right? This right here. Even if he gets a little stick out, and if I can roll out and I end up hitting him like to the back of his hand, the outside flat of his sword, structurally his blocks are less strong, and because we're using a two-handed sword, we are more likely to power through and hit them with good power. So the last little bit I'm going to tell you is, and you can drop this is more body mechanics thing, your wrist action is really good, but I don't see it being as accompanied with the elbow and the shoulder. So I don't throw, actually hold out the sword a little bit so I can hit it, so just give me a target. I don't throw like just wristy stuff, I throw what I call the whip crack. And so the hip drives it, right? And then there's kind of a motion that comes through the shoulders and the arms, and there is a little bit of scissor, but that's at the end. And so that's how you get big power with little motion. It's a lot like when they teach people to throw a flat snap and they talk about, closing the pinky and ring finger. Our two hands are essentially that pinky and ring finger, and then the hips and the kinetic chain through the whole body is how we get big power with little motion, right? Think about having looser arms and kind of whipping this tip out with the whole body, and use that scissor motion, but it's only the it's only the finishing part of the cut. There should be a little bit more to it. And it's a lot of like tense and relax, tense and relax, tense and relax. So you should be loose in between. So I'm going to stop here. That's a lot of rambling. If something was unclear or you need me to say it again a little slower, let me know because I get excited. But hopefully this is helpful, and let me know what you think.